Sometimes schools can have class pets. Typically not in high school, but in elementary schools it is not unheard of. However, the idea of class pets are criticized by people because they believe things such as children are not hygienic, pets can be an interruption and general distraction, especially for kids when they make noises. However, it is widely agreed that goldfish are practical to have as a class pet because they can't make noise, mess, and are relatively easy to take care of compared to other animals. With goldfish, things could go wrong, like if the bowl gets knocked over, that could be game over for the fish, but you could argue that the same thing could happen with any animal in a cage or an enclosed space. Rabbits could be class pets if they are safe by being watched by responsible people and are not afraid of the students in the room. However, the problem with this is that when rabbits are kept indoors, they should have a good amount of space to free roam in, and unless the rabbit is kept in a good amount of space and then brought to the classroom in a carrier or a huge cage, they would likely have to be kept in an enclosed space most of the time. On top of this, there would have to be some sort of teacher that would be on board taking care of the rabbit and taking care of any troubles such as where they are staying and how they are kept in the classroom. Usually the age demographic for students in elementary school is between 6 and 12 years old. So kids can be considerate and understanding, but they can also be very loud and unaware. So if you are a teacher, this is an important factor to consider. And these following questions are also important to consider. Are your students respectful, or are they super loud and disruptive? Or do they flip-flop between the two depending on how much you discipline them, or is harsh discipline even necessary? Other important things to consider as a teacher is to make sure that you yourself are willing to make a long-term commitment for this rabbit even outside of school, to make sure that none of your students would be allergic to rabbits or things that rabbits need like hay, and you can make sure of that by notifying parents and asking them every year with a contract about class pets. For example, if a student is allergic to hay, people might think that they are allergic to the rabbit if they have not been properly tested regarding what they are allergic to. And if it turns out that they are allergic to hay or something, provide that hay at a time or place it away from the student, probably at home or when students aren't around or far away from the student. The best method around this would be to get students who have allergy problems to sit at a table far away from the rabbit. That would seem like the most fair for everyone. Some schools don't allow certain pets, so make sure that your school is welcoming to rabbits and actually allows them to be there. Contrary to what people may think, it is actually acceptable for a rabbit to stay in a school, so a classroom over the weekend and even breaks. But you have to have certain precautions to make sure this goes right and doesn't go wrong. I personally would suggest against this though, and I'll get into that at the end. In order to achieve this correctly, you would have to have a lot of water lying around both in water bowls and water bottles, so that way they can choose between the two, and have lots of hay lying around, because most weekends are only from Friday to Monday, which is 3 days. This could be practical, but if you want to leave your rabbit behind during a long school break, so usually about a week, maybe 2 weeks depending on the school, you will have to show up to the school to take care of them, although to be honest, leaving them there would probably be unnecessary, and you should probably bring them home and not leave them at school by themselves for long periods of time. Again, weekdays people are there every day, including you, the teacher, and weekends are 3 days. So that would work. But leaving them in a school for a week or two probably wouldn't work. Rabbits that are kept in a classroom most of the time would become used to that environment and would likely have a positive association with it in their mind. So some people would argue that you should not force them to flip-flop between different living environments too much, while others may argue that as long as they are familiar with both environments and aren't constantly going into new environments, that is okay. Having a rabbit as a class pet can teach students responsibility by making them take care of the rabbit to an extent, and not that they are all fun and cuddly all the time. A good example of this is by getting your students to take out your rabbit's litter box and to make sure that they have enough water and food. While this could help teach students responsibility, it could also cause conflict between students about who gets to clean and do this and that at what time. Just make sure to watch over your students and end those conflicts before they get out of hand. Students that you may not have every day, so like an options class or something, they could give your rabbits treats and then spot clean them if it's not every day. Every time a new school year starts, don't introduce your rabbit as a class pet right away. Make sure you give it at least 2 to 3 weeks, so that way you have time to check with parents about allergies and if accommodations need to be made regarding that. And so rules can be established for new students, and even students that you have had before, it could still be useful to jog their memory. It is inevitable that there will be some days where a class of students and a teacher can't give full attention to a rabbit because they are too busy and it is too much to multitask, and you need your students to focus. So to balance this problem, you can have a stop sign with green and red and evaluate students based on their behavior and if it will be a distraction to them. Make sure everyone gets a turn. Don't limit the rabbit to only one student. Maybe 2 to 3 minutes a turn, that way everyone gets a chance. In conclusion, it is possible for a class to have a rabbit as a class pet, but given how much you have to go to the extra mile to give a rabbit a fulfilling life in this sort of setting, it makes sense from a teacher's perspective to just get an easy pet like a fish, and to not have to go through all that unnecessary trouble. And that's not to say that rabbits are worthless, it's just that if you get a pet rabbit, you should be ready to make the commitment necessary for them to have a good life. But on the positive side of things, it can help teach your students responsibility, compassion, and a purpose to be in school every day, as it gives them something to look forward to, and especially for students that may already be going through their own problems and changes, rabbits could be a huge motivation and a positive twist, and can help encourage positive behavior. Negativity can lead to positivity, and I think in this case it really shines. Now that I have talked about this topic and several different observations, I will now tell you what I think about this topic and if it is ethical. Keep in mind that this is my opinion. I personally believe that leaving a single rabbit unattended at a school should not be the case. If you are going to do that, at least get another rabbit for them to be friends with. Also, you would have to make sure that where they stay in the school is free roamed, and having rabbits unattended for hours on end could end in disaster and just feels a bit risky. It could work, but to make life easier for yourself, you probably shouldn't go to the lengths of having to stress about having a rabbit as a class pet. Yes, rabbits being class pets could be a massive benefit to students overall, but there is a lot more to it than just that. You have to think of the rabbits and their well-being too in order to make such a big decision.